Welcome to Get After It with Nashy, brought to you by Ace Property Management and Sales.
There you are. How are you?
Yeah, very well, mate. Thank you. Can you see me all right?
I can see you perfect. Yeah, it's a very nice bit,
dark.
Nice bit of artwork behind you.
Oh, there we go. The wave of destruction.
Oh, mate, we're all good. I can hear you. Can you hear me okay, yeah?
Yeah, man, absolutely. Oh, I've got beard envy of you. Look at that.
Beard envy. Well, I've been doing a bit of research. Obviously, this has come together quite quickly, as some of these podcasts do, and I put out a bit of a request or just you fancy coming on, and here we are. But going back through some of your footage and everything you've done, there's definitely been a bit of beard growth in some of your adventures, and you've looking a bit castaway. Can I say that? A bit castaway on a few excursions. How are you, and where are you at the moment?
Yeah, that's quite a consistent look I've got. I'm on the Isle of Wight at the moment, mate. Yeah, the sunny island, and I've come here. Yeah, I'm glad I'm here. The first thing I did after getting back was just hang out in London, which was just fatal, and it was just. Yeah, the energy and the noise and everything else. So I'm glad to be back here and winding back into things.
Yeah, I mean that must be weird with the amount of time you spend on a paddle board on your own, and then going to a city like London. What's that like on the senses? Yeah,
it just makes you realise the gap between you and society. It's amazing how that slows everything down. You know, it's like my life is spent going with the speed of time, really. You know, the speed of, gravity, as in tides, astrology. I watch weather systems come and go.
Yeah.
And that's my rhythm and that's my pace. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. It's quite radical coming back into just another level of frequency. It's like, Jesus, amazing.
But I mean, take me back though. What's the story? Where were you brought up? Were you brought up in a fast-paced environment, or you brought up by adventurers, travelers? What's the backstory?
Yeah, I had a bit of a. I was raised on a boat in Cyprus. Yeah, and I was that for my first 7 years of my life, and I was just a little water rat, little Mowgli of the sea. So I do joke about my transition from there to England, because obviously family fell apart, and everything had to be sold up, and my mother and I came back to England, but I lived above an engine room and below the disco, and mum and dad were just it was a party boat, and always stuff going on. And so I had this constant like noise of water, noise of, everything. There's always this sort of, as much as it being free and out at sea, there was always this constant goings on. And then I come back to school and I get chucked into boarding school. And then you're into your dormitory and it's like, right, lights out. And I'm like, what? Everyone's got to be silent before matron comes and kneecaps you, and I just couldn't sleep, and I just couldn't get it. So I used to go and hug the toilet and lie down by it and just constantly flush it through the night, and then I'd get that kind of feeling of that soothing water flow feeling. And eventually I'd fall asleep and get scooped up in the middle of the night and chucked in bed. So I did that for a while. I think I still do that. Just too quiet.
How did your parents end up living on a boat? Because it's not that conventional.
Well, they're both quite adventurous. They've met each other, fell in love, and kind of went on this adventure together. And they just were like, well, let's get this boat together and have some fun, And it was kind of a bit like that. The small print obviously was that my father's wake behind him was quite traumatic and full of drama. So that kind of ruined that bubble. But yeah, it was just a spontaneous between the two of them. I mean, there's a book written about their event out there, because the boat was used to rescue loads of people from a war in Lebanon and a big fire, and they used the boat to go and pick up rescue people and bring them back to Cyprus. and missiles were sent at the boat and all sorts, and nearly killed everybody. And so I would have been without both of them. But yeah, they've had all sorts of mad adventures out there, and I was just sort of like, yeah. And then I had to wear clothes, dude. It was just a tie. I didn't come back to like, you know, a transition. I had to go straight into formality.
I'm not leaving the subject. Were you on the boat when they were off saving people from war zones?
No, I was being looked after by my Jamaican nanny.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, and she just gave me cold baths. She was brutal.
Yeah. Okay. So an interesting. So I understand why you kind of do what you do now. Then there's a bit of understanding there that from that start in life that you might not go down the conventional route of sort of school, university, get a job, get married, get the dog, a route that I have taken, a route that I've enjoyed, but a route that this podcast has let me meet and speak to people who have gone a different journey, who have gone on a different path. And meeting someone like yourself who grew up on a boat and just outside Cyprus. I've been to Cyprus a few times, to Ayia Napa, you know. I know that culture. I've been there. It's maybe not quite the culture of the Cypriot way that you grew up with, but take us from school and matron and hugging the toilet. Was school fun for you? Did you get to go on many adventures, or did they try and pin you down and get you on that normal route?
Yeah, no, that's where it all started to fall apart, really, because me adapting over here, not just that side of things, but the diet and the education. I was super hyperactive, very dyslexic, all over the place. You know, you'd find me chasing a butterfly for hours and doing my own thing, and only child, daddy issues. There's a cocktail that kind of just nurtured me to obviously sculpt me to where I am right now. But yeah, no, it's been a bit of an issue with stuff, and that's why I found it fascinating, because I was so hungry to learn. I love education, but yet I was given a lot of shit. You know, I was labeled as thick. You know, the academic side of things was a real slow burner for me, and getting it. And then with the bullying, and even from the teachers, you know, the lack of patience from it and all that, it kind of made me distance myself from where I wasn't really allowed in, and so, you know, I was on the sports field, and that was my place. But it was only later on in life that there's a really hunger for education and the psychology and connection. I love teaching, and I love people, and I love problem solving, I love all that. But I'd already run away from all that good education. Obviously, it's debatable whether going to university and all those things are any good for you, really. But I'm talking about just from A levels up. So I jumped out of GCSE, you know, and I oh gosh, so hang on 1 second. I've just got to let. Sorry about that. Someone panicking outside. And so, yeah, and that was where that was. So I had this huge hunger for education, but I'd kind of come out the other end, got into business and gallivanted into life, but yet I didn't have all that business stuff and academic behind me. And there was just felt like there's a huge gap missing in my life and my adult life. And so hence why I sort of sculptured these sort of things as a way of my own self-education, you know.
And when did the adventures start? What was your first adventure? Because I want to talk about the Nile. I want to talk about obviously going around the UK, paddleboard and everything that you've done. But what was the first sort of time where did someone suggest you do it, or did you find yourself on your own adventure? What happened?
Yeah, I think I've been adventuring since young, but really my independence and doing it in my own creative way was when I started to pick up the paddleboard.
Yeah.
And that was, I had this click in my head that this is why I'm going to be using this as my weapon of choice, and making it my own. And that was like 2010. And then I went around the Isle of Wight a couple of years later or something to do that. And then that made me go, right, where can I take this? First thing was the the hardest possible rivers, the biggest rivers, cross an ocean, everything. It's like, right, no problem. And I set out on sort of sculpturing a kind of a breadcrumb process to get to building this craft across the Atlantic. And I took like 8 years too long about it. So it kind of got adopted and someone else did it. A couple of people tried. And that was where I started to campaign. And then I was going to do that with likes of Red Bull and stuff, but we ended up sculpturing the Amazon together, which is a shame because the Atlantic Ocean, that's where it all started. That was my baby. And it was a shame to let that go.
Was the Atlantic, was that the plan to go across on a paddleboard?
Yeah, but this was like it's similar to an ocean rowing boat in a way. It's you've got a cabin that you live in.
Okay.
And it's just a little bit smaller. And that's what the vessel was done in, but it was done in an actual ocean rowing boat, sliced up and stuck together. Mine was quite a specific build on its own merit. But yeah, 60 grand to build the damn thing. So it was I found it very difficult to find the money. I spent most of my life trying to persuade people it wasn't a ridiculous idea first. And then but that was where it blossomed from there really. Yeah.
So did you go down? Was the Nile? You mentioned Red Bull there. Were they involved with that project, or what's?
No.
Just with sponsorship interests me because I've spoken to so many adventurers and just how difficult it can be just to get to the start line. Like you mentioned there, how difficult. Yeah. Tell me about that.
That's why my start line, I wasn't anybody. I wasn't anything. So my start line was my Land's End of London. The start of going around the UK, and that was, and why I loved it at the start because it was like you don't need money. I mean, obviously, if you play with the dynamic of kindness of strangers and involving yourself with other people's support, great. But actually, what I did was barefoot, bare essentials, basics. I had safety taken care of, but it cost nothing, and it was just me and my graft. Mm-hmm. So. And that's really how it has normally got to start, and then you kind of get the engine going. But yeah, it's been it's hard work the sponsorship side of things, and it's ever so it's getting more and more complicated, and that's why there's a sort of an evolution going on how people can work it better and work together better. But yeah, it's very competitive out there.
With you taking the reins and going barefoot, limited supplies, limited money, and going, Land's End to London, and relying on making friends, relying on people's kindness, relying on people opening their doors. That's a big gamble, But what did it, when you finished it, did you have a different view on humanity? Did you have a different view on people? Were you anxious before you set off? Am I going to actually find places to sleep?
Yeah, no. I mean, the thing is that you're independent. So I don't need anybody. But it's a great way to connect and for that story to blossom. But I needed to be independent, and I think that's quite important psychologically. It's an important thing when you're connecting with someone that you're not completely dependent upon them straight away, and you put all that weight and pressure on. It's like, no, the whole point is to have an organic relationship and see if you want to continue talking or carry on, and a blind date as such, but being independent, have everything I need taken care of is I had to have that always. Yeah. So I carry all the things I need. However basic it was. Yeah. But yeah, like you said about the understanding humanity, I mean, that was the South Coast, and then I did England and Wales, and then years go past, and then I did Scotland. But yes, over this England, UK, just the most ridiculous education, connection, and story. I just so difficult to honor it fully. It's just been overwhelmingly beautiful.
Give us an example when you pitched up on a beach or came down into a canal or so, you know what I mean, something like that, where you didn't know where you were going to sleep that night, but something happened where you did get a roof over your head, you got a warm meal, and strangers took you in. I mean, was that quite common?
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously the power of the internet it was a bit, I had my track system live, so it's been like, where's Wally? There are people have quite a lot of fun trying to find me to see where I'm coming in. So, And sometimes the internet would be good. It'd be like, right, I'm coming through this area. Who's around? What's going on? Da, da, da. And then people can try and get organized. But actually, some of the best stories is when I didn't know where I was turning up because the weather's the way it is. And I'm just cracking on wherever I land is wherever I land. And communication's not that great. It's wet, it's dark. And then I meet, you know, the randoms, but so connected to my story already, but organic completely. You know, like they either worked in a home or they got mental illness issues and they're looking to understand, and they related to me as well. And I was like, it's just absurd how the irony and the coincidence, if there is that, of who I met and how I met them. And I've made this amazing map hub, which is like a Google Earth map, which is just every story, every person, what happened. And I've got that as this wonderful visual, and then help me bring that story alive, you know. And then I've got the video to match the place, that person's story, interviewing with that, and let them tell the story. And yeah, and it was magical. But the internet worked really well because it connected the people I was with to the next lot of people. So there are all these community of people around the same love, around the same incentives to end up having conversations together and be that sort of like pillar of support as well, you know. And this sort of, yeah, this mechanism, it's a catch a fire kind of effect.
With you doing what you're doing, and a lot of people maybe stuck in their lives, stuck doing what they maybe don't enjoy, when you would come into their world or their community, did you find a lot of people opening up to you, telling you about what they wish they were doing, or I'm envious of what you're doing, having freedom?
Yeah. I mean, which is what I wanted to be. I wanted to be that perfect ingredient to be a mobile confession box, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
The whole point was for me to expose my underbelly and to go, fuck it, here it is, and here warts and all, here it is, and that be you know, an invitation for you to do the same. And it's objective, it's you know, just between us, and there's a promise of me carrying on. So it's like you can capitalize on that intensity that we have together, and that openness and kindness, and then I'm gone. And it's, in a way, it's nice that there's the promise of me going, because it's before you dissect the person and each other and each other's relationship and all these things, there's this wonderful dance that we have, and we share the information, and we connect, and then I'm off, and then they get to reflect and I get to reflect, and it's got this wonderful potency to it. And that's what it was all about. Sometimes I found it difficult to carry it, sometimes because it's very emotional and I'm getting really tired as well. But then I got better at positioning myself in a balanced way to not carry sort of other people's emotions and feelings sometimes, because, you know, even without them expressing themselves, people's energy and vibrations can really throw different people off depending on who you are. And so I've mastering myself and be able to cope with that. But gosh, man, it was just so enlightening. It really was. I mean, absurd.
What does it do to you though when you hear people like using you as a confession box, and you maybe hear things that you weren't expecting, or someone really confides in you because you've turned up out of the blue?
I've seen it all, dirtiest, darkest.
Yeah.
It's no, I really loved it, and it made me learn a lot, and it was so fulfilling and rewarding to see someone, but also quite tragic, really, because you see the scale of people who are longing, you know, and who are lost and empty, and so good at surviving it, and so good at sugarcoating it, so good at just waltzing, but actually the truth is just darker, and how the community has an effect on that. And you know, and you know, I get to connect even deeper than like family. You know, you see all these people have so many associations and constructs built up in your mind with people that even your closest, you won't be able to really have that in depthness to. You know, there's a, you know, you've put them in a little place in your mind, whereas me, it was kind of like, you know, I didn't have those preconceptions or those kind of weights on me. So it was a lot easier to have a flow with someone. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about turning up in these places when you're actually physically fatigued? How was your body coping when you were on these challenges, when you were getting around the whole of Scotland? I've got a good pal of mine recently. He's a paddleboarder. He's a professional paddleboarder instructor, Stevie, from Ocean Vertical. And he did about 60 miles on a challenge. And he won't mind me saying this, that even a week after, his shoulders, his body was still aching. Now, he might not have trained a huge amount for the event, but he completed it, he got through it. But you're constantly on the waves, constantly battling. Did your body start to condition itself and start to sort of react very well, or was it painful the whole way through?
No, dude, this is where, you know, it just would take the edge off, dude. If I'm honest, it would be like, oh God, so that's what I have to do just to feel chilled out for a second. Like, wow. Yeah, that's the thing. Most of the time afterwards, I feel at peace, you know. I feel like this wonderful this wonderful weight lifted. It's the only time my knee doesn't start jittering, biting my nails, to overthinking and overtraining. It's just the one time it just takes that edge off. I'm like, right, okay, so I have to do 100 miles a day just to keep the edge off. And that's, to be honest, sometimes, you know, you get achy, but no, I didn't really. I just my body was a really, really good machine, and surprised to keep surprising me. Always keeps surprising me. I mean, it's amazing, like the physiological connection with the brain and the body, just like mental health. There's these very delayed reactions and triggers. So, you know, if I'm in a stressful situation, my body will say, right, you're not going to have a shit for a few days. So we need that water, we need that energy. And it does its job. It's kind of doing a thing separate to you. You know, it's recognized that you're in a stressful situation. Now it's going to take protocol. So it's a bit like that with the mental health. You know, you've got these triggers and these things that happen, and then your body's going to react to it. How can you change that? And so, you know, my brain, I think, was communicating very well with my body, and so it really sort of optimized my performance. And I like to think, yeah. And so, yes, mate, to be honest, I'm always surprised at how my body just loves it.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that. I've interviewed, there's a guy recently who did 48 marathons in 48 days. Nick Butter, you're maybe familiar with, ran around the world. He recently ran from the whole of Great Britain. Their body starts adapting. They get through a certain stage, and their body starts adapting, and they start reacting better, and injuries start not healing, but they start to not notice them as much. And then they hit flow states. They hit times in their mind where their mind is just getting them through, and they can accomplish much more than they actually started thinking they would that day. And it's really, to the everyday man, it's incredible to think that we are able to do more. So much, yeah. Yeah, and it's actually our mind that stops us, because our bodies can do more. Yeah, that's it, man. Taking those first steps, knocking off the ice of your wetsuit, and getting in it, loving it. Yeah. It must be interesting. What about wildlife? North coast of Scotland, did you bump in? You might have done, but wildlife, dolphins, whales, any interesting encounters? Actually, if I'm honest, disappointing. I mean, I took the East Coast was my favorite chapter for sure, and I went across the Hebrides and did that whole curve in and created a new paddle route. And I thought, I'm going to come across everything. You know, I'm way out at sea, and I'm going to see it all. And the first crossing from Loch Inver to Lewis and Harris, loads of minke whales, loads of dolphins, and it was beautiful. But that was almost it. I mean, I get dolphins and stuff, but I didn't see any orca, hardly any other whales apart from minkies, and it was, it was way more barren because I've done it in the winter and I've done it in the summer, and I just can't help but feel like it was too quiet. Really? And I feel maybe it's the military, because there's a lot of bombing that goes on over there, and there's a lot of testing, a lot of submarining, and all this stuff. So I'm sure that messes with their signals. So
but it's hard to prove all of that. But it did feel, quieter than I hoped, man, sadly.
Okay, then I'm going to stay on that. What about hippos and crocodiles and all sorts of things in the Nile? Anything over there that was exciting?
Gosh, the little squishy sea cows.
Yeah, those little guys.
They are bipolar. They're just absolutely psycho.
Really?
Yeah, 1 minute just chilling out, and then we'll just lose it. Yeah, the hippos, and that sinister cry they have. It's like, I call it a sinister Santa. It's like, oh, 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 oh. You just hear them through the night. And I was like, what a choice of noise. Yeah, they were right. We didn't have any incidents, but we had to. We're in the summer through Africa, so we're talking, shallow. Like the river is now squeezed, bottlenecked into this channel. So when we're going past, I think it's sort of like this awkward kind of sliding past, and trying to not look threatening, especially when you see a little kid, the little baby. The crocs are quite small up at the source. We got only one big croc called a gatekeeper or something, which was a bigger one, but no problems there. But yeah, it definitely keeps you on your toes because they're all at the bottom of the rapid, like a conveyor belt of sushi and food, just waiting for whatever turns out. This is me, I always end up in a pile of bones at the end of big rapids. So
it's obviously
not the happy ending.
Interesting coming off the paddleboard around the UK, but getting on land at the edge of the Nile and going into those communities, that's a whole different ballgame. What was that like?
Yeah.
What are your memories of that compared to the UK, and how hospitable were people? Yeah,
people are always the most dangerous thing. I mean, the Nile was okay. Africa, love Africa, God, and the tribes and the people there were smooth, and we had quite a group, so we had a good presence there. But I think the Amazon, that was more of a nightmare. All the narco trafficking areas, you got the jungle law over there. They don't want you around. They'll just shoot you and bury you, and no one's going to know about it. And it's definitely got that feeling when you get in the remote parts of it. And they hate the Kringo, man. Oh my God, there's a lot of hate. I mean, historically, we have made it. We've done some horrible shit, really bad. Our history over there is really bad. So there's still a huge amount of hate in some areas, but yeah, the people. That was it. There's a lot of rock throwing, a lot of people chasing us on the side in certain areas. But actually, it was a plantation family that gave me that balsa raft, which was nice. With a 14-year-old daughter holding the shotgun. I was like, but anyway, that was nice. So they did give me a leg up. But
what's that like? Yeah. You mentioned Narcos there. That's obviously so famous with the Netflix documentaries, all the things we can see now. But what was it actually like going through that, or seeing a plantation, or were you able to? How close did you get? Did you see anything getting produced, getting trucked out, and all that sort of stuff?
No, well, I mean, there's lots of boats going back, going backwards and forwards. Were you trying to get me in trouble, dude?
No, not at all. But it's interesting, and these things.
It's great contact for you, mate. No. But yeah, no, dude, there was not much to be seen. Obviously, lots of plantations and the people guarding them, and but not really. They have these little gauzes, these little mini gauzes with like a long needle in it, and they're kind of like. Obviously the leaves, you can make tea and you can chew it and stuff with other stuff. But they have these lovely little gauzes and a long pin, and they kind of like shove it and they just sort of swipe it across their mouth and like on it. So it looks like they're kind of like pretty wired most of the time. But that was like a little traditional thing that they were all doing. And I think, everyone's got their different methods of that stuff. But yeah, dude, it was kind of background stuff in the jungle with the tribes, especially when we went getting closer and closer to Iquitos. Then and then a friend of mine actually, who sadly a lady who went to do the Marignon, she ended up actually getting shot and killed.
What happened?
She left she went to do the Marignon and left a couple of years after. She went and did it solo, and it's like she was meeting up with people on the way, but and she ended up just getting shot. But I think they did actually find the people who did it, but it doesn't happen all the time. But hence why sometimes, especially female or bigger groups, is going to be safest bet to do that.
What sort of food are you eating when you're going through the Amazon? What can you get your hands on, or are you taking a risk every time?
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's just a soup of everything there. So I carry lots of my expedition food, and I would eat the local produce as well. But quite a lot of time I had a couple of months supply of my own expedition food. But that's the thing. You try and avoid getting sick, but it's actually probably important to get sick early on and let your body adapt and lick it all, and then you're off and you're on. Your body's kind of adapted. So I kind of look forward to getting the sickness out of the way early.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Just totally go in, embrace it, eat everything.
Go in, lick everything. Yeah.
Get out of the way. Yeah, I've never heard some people or anyone explain it like that, but it makes a bit of sense as long as it doesn't get too bad. Yeah,
right, exactly. I mean, Nile was it. I mean, as soon as we started, everybody was just, when you're in big groups, it's like, ding, and suddenly everyone's gone.
Yeah.
And they're avoiding it.
Just goes through the system. But you're obviously doing all these challenges to raise awareness, and what have you felt the biggest impact that you've made, whether it's on climate change, or I know you've done things for whales and all sorts of things. Where do you see a bit of difference, or where have you really sort of put your efforts to shine light on where there are real problems in the world?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, really, nowadays about getting organized and no different to our bodies. You need the loo, you've got a dinosaur chasing you, you've got an ingrowing toenail, you've eaten something funny, you've got all these problems you've got to do. Your body's got to prioritize what it's going to look after first to get you through the hurdles. And I feel like, the same with us, with our planet. We've got a lot of problems, and we kind of need to prioritize, what we focus on. And adventure and exploration is, like the anchor men, the front line, the scientists in raising awareness for stuff and bringing it back to the kids. And that's where I see the powerful stuff. But that's kind of a slow process, the education, because we got desperate things and measures happening now, which needs really quite extreme reactions to combat it. And there's so many issues, but if you're trying to raise awareness of something, you're trying to appeal to TV, you've got to pitch it, you've got to have the cocktail of ingredients, you've got to have the demographic they're trying to appeal, you've got to have something that's substantial and impactful, that's big, a world first. Then you've got to have your message, then you've got to have a story, then you've got to have all this perfect ingredients to get it on a platform that can actually get the eyeballs to watch it and to reach it. And I love media and I love art, and I love that being the way of reaching people and capturing them and bringing them into the problem that they can get involved with. So that's the thing, but it's fiercely competitive, and that's why we all need to be a lot more organized. So whether it's a species we're trying to save, or a method of dealing with an environment or conservation, and the education, I just think scientists, explorers, we should work together really well, not just socially, but like, physically, and the education and passing it on to the kids afterwards, having that continuity of doing an expedition, writing an education program about it, working with the schools on it, seeing them before, delivering it, and then seeing them afterwards. You just see them suck up the information so much better. And it's so powerful. So it's very involved, and there's not much support and money out there to put all this effort in, and that's it, man. Really, it's trying to find those cocktail of ingredients that can capture your imagination.
Yeah, and is that what you're doing? Are you choosing or plans on the next challenge to try and catch that imagination for the next endeavor? Is that what you have to work on with your team?
That's it. I mean, the marine conservation and the education around that is really close to my heart, obviously. and it's brilliant in being immersed in that environment and connecting with them as well. So it's not just the A to B, but it's being with the tribes and talking about the subjects and root and deep. But there's lots of interesting ones coming up. But I'm a bit of a loner, and I do my own thing, but I'm all about trying to align myself with people much more now, and have much more effective impact on the things we're trying to raise awareness for. So
where's that come from? Where's you, if you describe yourself as a loner? But then you look for community when you're out doing these challenges. It's strange to hear that you're obviously quite comfortable in your own company, but
yeah, that's it. I mean, sometimes I used to think maybe I'm overcompensating for the lack of connection, but actually I think it's that balance that makes it work for me. I mean, I look at how communities work and how everyone's got an integral part of making it work together. But there's always going to be people like me that need to do their own thing and want to be separate. But they are part of the community,
mm-hmm.
and love it and live it. And that's really what's about sustainability and connection that we all need for each other. And I look at that as that's what I've needed in my life. But I'm like the worst subject. I'm like the hardest person to pin down and to do that. So it's like, well, if I can find a solution for bringing me into this problem I'm trying to solve, then I've cracked it. So yes, I do have this huge desire to be part of more intimate community kind of attitude. But trouble is, that's an enemy of economy in a way. If you're getting organized, smaller, powerfuler communities, independent, it's kind of, it's a difficult one.
I think it might be the case that community, you say someone like you that can be a loner or can do things on their own, but communities need people like you, because so many communities, as I said earlier, they're stuck in their ways, and they want to cheer you on. They want to cheer the adventurer, the person that isn't conventional.
Yeah.
The person that's interesting, the person that's out there doing something that is scary, it's 10 all through the night across the sea on a paddleboard. What the hell is he doing? But you're doing it. You're getting after it. And communities, when you come in, we're interested to see you. We're interested to hear about you. How did you survive? What did you eat? We need guys and girls like you.
Yeah. Well, but it's that relationship. I mean, it's a bit like the relationship between the left and the right, conservative and liberal. It's that the explorer, which is not just Indiana Jones stuff. I mean, it's an explorer as an artist. It's an athlete. It's an explorer in the creative mind, the uncharted, the new perspective. To have that in society, you're kind of isolated straight away, because life is about consistency, academic, structure, safe, reliable. All these things actually sometimes make me quite uncomfortable. But in the majority of life and economy and society, that's what everybody needs and is looking for. So there's this uncomfortable relationship where all the boundaries that are broken, all the creative things that we've got come from the creatives, but not necessarily the business side and turning it and twisting it into profit and to direction and reliable and something they can control. So there's this awkward relationship, and it feels like and 80% of your life is spent not getting the results. But then when you do, everybody jumps on you and goes, right, nice one, you found gold, we're going to take 95% and we're going to do the and then turn it and farm it, and off you go now until you find the next opportunity. So it's that, it's these the creators of the weapons to getting things done, but then farmed, and that's really where the profit comes out of it. So it's that kind of, and I feel like I've been a bit like that, where society you kind of need me, but you don't know how to deal with me, because it's like, like reliable and consistent. So it's this,
but reading about a guy that's on a paddleboard and he's got everything in the world with him that he needs, where the amount of people buy things they don't need and end up selling it on Gumtree for less money, but just to keep them busy or just to try and get some of that money back because they just keep buying and selling and all that sort of stuff. Where you're out there living, doing something completely different on a shoestring budget, staying where you can,
pair of jeans,
in the same pair of jeans, in the same whatever, and getting an internet connection when you can. Instagram went down the other night, and we all lost WhatsApp and Facebook, and the world. I mean, Twitter went crazy, social media went crazy, headlines, and everyone was probably. I did it myself a few times. You're just trying to refresh. When's everything going to come back online?
I know people are. Shines a light on how reliable everybody becomes so quick, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm texting my mum. She's a bit older. Does she know that WhatsApp isn't working? Does she know she's got to phone me if she needs me? Mum send me a text message, phone me, because we use WhatsApp.
Yeah.
That wasn't there. It was taken away from us.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Do you know actually what happened?
I don't know. Someone pressed the off button or something. I think I read an article, but what do you believe? Do you believe BBC News? Do you believe Sky News? Do you believe CNN? I don't know. Zuckerberg had to come out and apologize, and they'll have been upgrading something and an algorithm went wrong or something, or they were up to something and that was the time that they downloaded everything that they needed from the world and took everything off our phones for those 6 hours, and we just all thought, oh, there's a problem here. Who knows what went on?
Who knows?
We will never know. But it happened, and you can live in a world where you not necessarily need to be connected at all.
I know, but it's a funny thing because I'm that guy, but then the whole effectiveness of what I do is completely about social media, and it's the one time where I go, oh, this is when social media rocks, because people are following something and interacting with something that's live and happening now, and there's kind of like breadcrumb trails, and there's this sort of like story, and there's an interaction thing, and I just I find it great, but outside of doing it, and I kind of feel like, well, it's a bit of an obsessive kind of thing, but I do enjoy how it's affected things socially as well, I have and how people have connected and it's reached everybody, so I do like it as well. It's a bit like my exercise. Like for this last section, I ended up having a Garmin watch linked to my tracker system GPS. So I've got everything being measured now. So I know my heart rate, my paddle stroke, the speed every mile, all this molecular data that I normally don't listen to because I'm just thumping it on my own. And now suddenly I've incorporated that into my life. And now I've been a complete geek. Now I'm just obsessing over like how much I did a mile, how many strokes. When I did the 24-hour record thing, I was like, I could tell how fast my mile was going to be by every paddle stroke. So the pressure I put on my paddle, I go, oh, that's a 16-minute mile. Oh, that's a 10. Oh, I've got to keep up with that. Oh, the tide's just turned and this episode. So the big things, I love the way big things teach you about the small things. And so I was going into these tiny little details of my body and strength, and how I go judging myself and what I've got to keep up with to reach that average. And I was like, oh my God, I've become that other guy. Like, oh my God.
But so who do you prefer? Do you prefer it when you didn't give a shit about your paddle strokes, or?
I think the hybrid, I think it's good. I think it's good to come from the natural and then now bring in the tech with it. And now I'm super efficient, but it's a bit like the left and the right, you know what I mean? Creative. And then I see a pattern. I go out of that side of the brain and then into like formulating structure and plan and reading it like, ooh, patterns, ooh. And then suddenly I'm out of the flow of being present and like twirling around. And so it's like, I kind of, it sort of takes me out of being connected to nature to being obsessed with the data. And so I need to sort of rip myself out of each one when I want to change. So, yeah.
Then
contradiction.
there's that conversation. If it's not on social media, if it's not tracked, it didn't happen.
Didn't happen, man.
All that sort of stuff. There's pressures. You need to log everything these days. You need to show that you've been training. You need to show the next podcast coming. You need to be there or take a week off, and the next person's got your listeners. They've got your record and all these sorts of things. The social side brings so much pressure that we all put each other under.
Just be live constantly. There we go.
Who knows? Who knows? They're talking about is it Google or Facebook's bringing out glasses that are constantly filming, so you'll never know. Instead of having to go and hold up a phone or a camera, they'll have glasses that are just constantly on. You'll never know when someone's filming you. You'll never know all these sorts of things. Privacy is going to be a thing of the past.
Yeah, it already feels like that. Yeah.
We put our lives out there, and most of the time you show the good stuff.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing how the amount of people that are buying up in land in Scotland and getting their little retreat. Everyone's like, "Oh, that first rehearsal run of the apocalypse didn't go down too well," and now everyone's looking for the little plan Bs.
The bunker under the ground and hoarding food and get the long-lasting tins. What's winter going to be like? Where were you for the pandemic? Where were you through the majority of the lockdown?
Yeah, well, I was up north. I was up there for quite a while, and I came back down south and hid down here. But mainly, Scotland and the Isle of Wight.
Yeah.
The Isle of Wight was like the Cretaceous period. It was amazing. You could hear the mainland, and it was just so beautiful. A lost Caribbean island. Amazing.
And were you okay for supplies? Have you got fuel at the moment? What's the state of play?
Oh, the island's complete. We don't need you. Look. We're totally self-sufficient over here.
Is that right?
And I'd already made my plan. I was like, okay, right. First thing, I'm taking over one of those forts. I'm going to my mate who's got a duck and a chicken farm, and I'm just raiding that. And then and that's it. I'm going to hold up my own on one of those forts. It's quite funny. No, we got everything here. We got our own booze, our own cheese, our own water, and a rather crazy bunch of people. I do love the islanders. They are cool over here.
So is that home for you, or where would you say is home?
It is kind of home. I've been here 20 years, and it feels like, but to be a local over here, you need generations behind you.
Okay.
So but it is home. It is home.
Yeah. Okay. So what's next? When are you next back on the paddleboard, or where are you traveling to, or would you ever take on something that isn't on the paddleboard? Would you look at mountains? Would you look at deserts and all these sorts of things?
Oh man, I just love it all. I used to do a bit of stunt work for film. Because the training was get to do horse riding, gymnastics, sword fighting, biking, this, that. I get to train and do it all because I love it all. But
what films were you? Hold on, what films were you in?
Hold up. No, nothing major, man. Just sort of, I did Pan, the latest Peter Pan film with Hugh Jackman, and then Fury, the tanks.
With Brad Pitt.
Aye.
Yeah, Brad Pitt and Shia LaBeouf. That's a good movie.
Shia LaBeouf, he's nutter.
So you've met Shia LaBeouf. Is he as nuts in real life?
Oh yeah, no, he's great though. He's great. He's a lovely nuts.
Yeah. So whose stuntman were you? Whose stuntman were you?
Oh, it's just general, man. I was there for a few months, just one of the tank crew.
Oh, cool.
And we did lots of reenacting, shooting, fighting, cruising around in the winter. It was amazing. I mean, I learned more about the Second World War doing that than I ever did in all of my education. And it was a perfect Charlie. I mean, that's just how I love learning. I got to wear their clothes. I got to fire the actual M1.
Mm-hmm.
I got to do it in the time. I got to meet the veterans who actually fought in the war, ride in the actual tanks. Just everything was just nerd out on the war, and you just soak it up, and I was just fascinating, and no wonder it was such a murderous I mean, the weapons were constantly breaking down, the things they had to go through. And they were just kids, and we were all big lads. And they were like 17-year-old kids in the war. Like, oh my God, massacre, cannon fodder, horrible.
Crazy time. So you've been a stuntman. What else have you done?
Oh, dude. What else have I done? Just my own my own. I used to, well, people like me started parkour, yeah, but they used to just call me a hyperactive bastard.
Jumping off roofs.
Yeah. He's like, yeah. Oh, now they've got a name for it. Great. I really could have done with that name when I was younger. But yeah, no, dude, I just can't take the straight path, you know. I've always been a bit of a, yeah. One
Good
of
on
those.
you, Charlie. No, well, I've enjoyed following you. I wish you every success with whatever's next. Be good to
Thank
see
you,
you in
mate.
some more movies. That's cool. Maybe.
Oh, dude, I think maybe that's it. But I'd love to create and produce some more film. That's what
Yeah.
I really love to do. So hopefully more of that to come.
And have you? Well, I watched a lot of your videos. They're well edited. They're pretty good. The Nile one and everything you've been doing. Do you edit them yourself? Is that a skill that you've got? Or?
Yeah. It's like one of the things I'd love to do and love to more time with. But Jesus, you have to geek out on it, and
Yeah.
I spend too long on it. But I love doing that. I just can't do it all at the moment. I'm trying to sort of give myself direction, and I've got some people who've come into my life who are helping me with that direction, because otherwise I'm just bouncing off the walls, really. I'm not really giving things I need my attention. But I love the filming. I love the filmmaking side of things. So I really want to create some more magic with that.
Good,
Yeah.
man. Well, I'm
Did you
going
do a bit of that yourself?
Well, the thing I do is editing the podcast, is creating the YouTube uploads for that. So there's a bit of time and a bit of effort in there. But yeah, I do bits and pieces with my kids and fitness videos and all these sorts of things. But it's very much around
Do all your own.
my career. Yeah, I do everything myself and with my wife Abby. But everything's around the family and my career. The main job, which is in property in Edinburgh city centre. So this is very much a passion project, a side hustle, but I absolutely love the podcast. And you're talking about like stuntmen. I interviewed Bobby Holland-Hanton, who's Chris Hemsworth's stunt double. So I mean,
Yes. Oh no. Yeah.
Well, I really love that movie world and getting into international rugby players and adventurers and all sorts of guests. So this is something to sit in evenings and chat and listen to people that are doing incredible things is what I really enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know
That's
Bobby?
funny.
What was that reaction?
No, because I just one of my embarrassing moments with Chris Hemsworth. I was this time when I was going up to do a body double for him. But it was when he did The Old Man and the Sea. Wasn't it The Old Man and the Sea? It was like the Moby Dick one, when he lost a lot of weight and was a little bit thin and
Oh yeah.
And I was going to go and stand in on that, and then they gave me a call and said, well, if you can do that, then come over on the Thor thing, and maybe we can use you for some double stuff for that. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Got in and they started wrenching on the costume, the Thor costume, and dude, they couldn't get my tummy in, man. I'm like, I was too fat. Yeah, Chris has got like a 33-inch waist. And I was like, what? Because his arms are just enormous. And he's a beast. And he's 6'4". And I was like, yeah. Obviously, my arms aren't as big, and there's a bit of a proportional thing, but I'll be all right. No chance, man. I had 3 people on the corset and I was breathing in and everything, and they just couldn't get me into the damn thing. And they said, sorry, dude, man, we're going to have to, that's not going to work out. And I was so gutted. And then I lost me the work doing The Old Man and the Sea. And then this other guy got the job. So when you're like that, I was like, oh, that was the guy who got the job, because he was there with me.
Oh wow!
Bobby was there,
yeah, Bobby Holland-Hanton. Yeah, mate. He's a
stuntman. You said
he's a stuntman. He's Chris.
Yeah. This wasn't anything fancy. This was just like stand-in kind of doubly stuff with a few things. You know, nothing like the stunt work. So.
What a small world. Well, here I'm excited to see what you do next. I wish you all the best. It's been great catching up.
Dude, really nice to meet you. Thanks, man. Hope we maybe get a paddle one day.
We'll do that. Yeah, I'm in East Lothian, near North Berwick. You probably went past this coast at some point.
Yeah.
But if you're ever in the area, we'll do a lot of paddleboarding out here, surfing, coast steering. We've got lots going on. So yeah, keep in touch.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm going to be putting on some expedition stuff for other people with a company called the Explorers Creed, and
cool.
It's going to be about doing immersive kind of retreat stuff as well as more intrepid adventure stuff. So I'll send you some stuff when we're up.
All right, man. Okay, well, here, take care. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks a lot, mate. Take care.
All the best.